Oh, hey there. Can we please talk about UFC Fight Night? God only knows. It's headlined by Font versus Vera. I think it should be like Fight Night 207. I think even the UFC are starting to lose track of the numbers at this point because, yeah, it's mind-boggling. But either way, it's a fight night. It's on ESPN Plus. I believe it's also referred to as UFC on ESPN 35, something like that. In any case, headlined by Rob Font versus Marlon Vera. That is a hell of a main event, and there are some very good fights on this card as well. So I'm going to be going through it, placing some absolutely terrible bets, and seeing, just breaking down the fighters, seeing what avenues they have available to them, seeing what I think is going to happen, and then what you should do is probably bet on the opposite because the bets are pretty terrible. If all that sounds good, stay with me for the Burt Locker Fights in 15 for UFC Fight Night Font versus Vera. So, going to start off in the middleweight division. Gerald Meerschaert, GM3, I think he's called, something like that. Anyway, against Krzysztof Jotko. Now, this one's interesting. You've got Gerald Meerschaert. He's coming in as a slight underdog here, I believe. Or is he? I don't know. I don't think it. Either way, it's close on paper. This one is going to be a close fight. Krzysztof Jotko, he had a lot of hype going behind him when he first came in, but I don't know. His fights just seem a little bit uninspired for me. He's very good. Don't get me wrong. He's sharp when he's on form. He's very good at kind of sniping people. He can just pick people off from a distance and kind of cruise to a decision. Are they the most inspiring performances in the world? No, I'm not going to lie. I don't think they are. But he is good. Don't get me wrong. He is very good. Both in terms of reach and size, the reach is basically the same. They're both 6'1", and I think that Meerschaert, he's possibly often a little bit overlooked because people just remember that they put him against Khamzat Chimaev, and obviously Chimaev just flatlined him with one punch. But that's Khamzat Chimaev, do you know what I mean? He's a bit of a beast, in case you didn't know. Meerschaert, he's a very good submission guy. Look, 26 of 24 wins have come by way of submission. That doesn't happen by accident. The guy is slick. He's very good at getting chokes as well. Guillotines, rear naked chokes. He is kind of a choke specialist. He's got too many to count, honestly. And that's where I think you're getting some fairly decent value on here because you've got 4.33 on the submission for Gerald Meerschaert. Now, I do think that if he wins this fight, I'm not convinced he outpoints Jotko in a stand-up fight because Jotko's he's a very slick kickboxer. He's very good at timing and he's good at staying out of the way and just picking people off and doing enough just to get by on the scorecards. However, if this goes down to the ground, I think Meerschaert's got a really clear advantage, and I think that is probably going to be his path of least resistance. And I always say this, look, most fighters are going to be looking for the path of least resistance because that's the smart thing to do. You want to play to your strengths whilst playing away from your opponents. So I would see that Gerald Meerschaert's probably he's probably going to create some scrambles. He's not really like a kind of a power double leg kind of guy, but he is quite good at creating those scrambles, and he'll find a way to get it to the ground, and possibly even if he does shoot for the takedown, you could lure Jotko into kind of sprawling, putting the head forward, and leaves the neck exposed, possibly for a guillotine attempt, something that Meerschaert is extremely good at. So I like the value there, and that's what I'm going for. I'm going Gerald Meerschaert by submission. I think he's got 3 submissions in a row at the moment. Jotko is a slight step up in competition, I think, from the guys that he fought after Khamzat Chimaev, but not a huge step up in competition, in all honesty, because Jotko's not beaten too many people, that are kind of massively noteworthy. So I just think that when you've got 26 to 34 by submission, and there's every chance he gets a submission there. But even so, that's a terrible bet. Watch Krzysztof. If you want a safe bet, Krzysztof Jotko by decision. That's probably one of the safest bets on the card. But I like to roll the dice, and I'm going to roll the dice on Gerald Meerschaert to grab that neck and get one more submission on his record. And then you've got Andrei Arlovski. He's still fucking going. Unbelievable. what even? I can't even, Andre. Like, I'm so happy he is still fighting, but fuck me. It's just, yeah, he's like, what, 33 and 20 now? So that's like, what, 53 fights? That's mental. That's absolutely mental. And he's still fighting in the UFC at a high level. Like, because Andrei Arlovski, he is a gatekeeper now. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. He is the litmus test. He's the test that people need to pass. And Jake Collier, he's going to be tested. Make no mistake. Now, I quite like Collier for this fight because he is pretty good. Like he started his career off at middleweight, but he decided that he just didn't want to cut weight anymore, and he wanted to keep going to heavyweight. And he's retained some of that speed, he's retained some of that movement. I do think that Collier is going to have a speed advantage in this one, and as well as that, Collier's top game is pretty fucking slick. When Collier fought Chase Sherman, I think it was. Let me just check my database here. So. Yeah, it was against Chase Sherman. Because Collier is not officially, he's not accredited in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so far as I can see. But once he gets the fight to the ground, go back and watch the fight with Sherman. Once he got the fight to the ground, he transitioned so effortlessly to the mount, and then just from there he was just crushing. He just did whatever he wanted to do, and I don't know if it'll be as easy to get Arlovski out of there, but you know what, Arlovski, he got submitted by Tom Aspinall last time out. He's not immune to those submissions. I think if Collier he stands enough to get the fight down to the ground, I feel like there's every chance he can find the submission because he is pretty good. Like I said, that top game, no joke. So when you see that Collier is 14 to 1 to get the submission, I'm like, yeah, I'm having a go on that all day. Because, Arlovski's coming in as a slight favourite in this one. And I just can't bet on Arlovski as a favourite. If Arlovski was coming in as an underdog, I might consider having a go. But I just don't think that Arlovski is dominant enough to think that he's 100% going to beat anybody. And when you're looking at, like I said, Collier's style, and I think the path of least resistance again, I think his speed is probably going to be a problem for Arlovski. And I think if he can stand long enough to just kind of transition to a takedown, scramble, and once he's down on the ground, once he's in top position, like I said, it was frightening. Against Sherman, it was like a hot knife through butter. It really was. So if he can repeat that 14 to 1 on the submission is an absolutely terrible bet. But you know what? I've seen way stranger things happen than that. And then you've got Alexander Romanov versus Chase Sherman. Chase Sherman, who I just mentioned, who's had that loss to Jake Collier. Now, unfortunately, Sherman, he's coming up against Alexander Romanov, and as I said in my previous assessment of this one, I think that actually Romanov is 15-0, 8 submissions, 6 knockouts, 1 decision. He is ridiculously good. Now, I'm not going to say that Chase Sherman's got 0 chance in this, which is why the fact that he is 10 to 1 against right now, 10 to 1 against just to get the win, I think that's worth a couple of quid just because. I've seen way stranger shit happen than that. I mean, they're heavyweights. When the leather flies, shit can happen. But for my accumulator, for my actual bet, my actual pick, I don't think there is a much safer bet on this card than Romanov by knockout. Romanov by knockout, probably the safest bet on this card, and that is what I'm putting on my accumulator. Although I do wish Sherman all the best. I love seeing someone who's being that heavily kind of overlooked come good. Sherman's not terrible. Like I can't feel bad for the guy. He just doesn't seem to be able to put it together sometimes. And yeah, Romanov is a killer. It could be a mess, that one. It could be a mess. It could be a very quick, short mess, is my assessment. And then you've got the main event, Rob Font versus Marlon Vera. This is a really good fight, actually, because look, Rob Font is really good. He stumbled a bit against Jose Aldo, didn't seem to be able to kind of find the mark and ended up dropping that decision. But against Cody Garbrandt, he looked outstanding. He was so goddamn fast. He was just so fast. He was so quick on the draw, just in and out. Boxing range was fucking outstanding. But I think the problem here is whether it stays in boxing range or in kicking range, because I think Marlon Vera is probably he's probably going to have an advantage when it comes to kicking, because you saw that kick that he did to Frankie Edgar, sent him to the shadow realm, that front kick, but also it's the leg kicks that Cheeto, he's very good with those leg kicks. I mean, Sean O'Malley knows about Cheeto's leg kicks, you know what I mean? It like that ended the fight, effectively. And yeah, his leg kicks are excellent. They're an excellent rangefinder as well. And his front kicks to the body as well, the oblique kicks, he uses them really well to keep his range and keep the fight in kicking range, which is where Marlon Vera is going to excel. Now, this one it's a tough one to pick, because on paper, I think Rob Font is probably going to be slightly faster in boxing range. And if it stays in boxing range, there's every chance that Rob Font goes in and out and just kind of pieces Marlon Vera up. However, I don't think it stays in boxing range necessarily, not for the entire 5 rounds anyway. I think that there are going to be moments here where Marlon Vera is going to be able to take advantage. I think that Marlon Vera, I don't know why I'm saying this, because I have no real kind of evidence to back it up, but in my head, I feel like Marlon Vera is probably the more powerful of the two. I feel like he's going to have more fight-ending power than Rob Font. But I base that on absolutely nothing, which is a bizarre thing to say. But you know, sometimes you just have a feeling when you look at them two, and you look at their statures. I just feel like Vera's probably going to be the more powerful. And also Vera does have a lot more submissions. He seems to be a little bit slicker on the ground if it is to go there, but I do see it playing out on the feet. So it's a toss-up, really. You know, Rob Font is more than capable of winning this fight, but by the same token, Marlon Vera is also perfectly capable of winning this fight. So in that event, I usually go with the underdog, and Marlon Vera is the underdog in this one. Now, one thing that I would say about Marlon Vera is that generally speaking, he is a finisher. 15 of 18 wins are by way of finish, either a submission or a knockout. And you've got to remember that this one is 5 rounds, so he has an extra 2 rounds in which to get that finish. So for me, the double chance for Marlon Vera is 3.10. So you're getting better than even money on the double chance. That is a terrible bet, horrible. That is just terrible enough to stick onto my bet slip so I can bang that on my accumulator. So obviously the bets on their own are just not terrible enough for me, because if I really want to make sure this shit doesn't see the light of day. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is put them all together on one accumulator. I like to call it my MMA Lotto scratch card, because it's like having a scratch card, but you get to watch some people punch each other in the face in the process of drawing out the numbers, if that makes sense. It's just a fun way of doing it. I'll do this for fun. Remember, always gamble within your means. I always keep the stakes very, very low. I keep the odds high, and that's why these bets are terrible. But it is betting purely for fun. And yeah, so I'm going with Meerschaert to get the submission. I'm going with Collier to get the submission. Going with Romanov to get the knockout. That's one of the safest bets on the card. Now watch it go the other way. And then I'm going with Marlon Vera, double chance, submission, knockout, TKO, putting all those together on one 4-fold accumulator, 423.15 to 1. That is absolutely terrible. Don't touch that bet with a barge pole. Awful stuff. But either way, no, I'm looking forward to this event. Like I said, especially that main event, they're two guys that are really at the top of their game, and it's going to be a real fun one to watch. You get to see some of the classics like Mr. Andrei Arlovski still making that walk to the octagon after all these years. It's going to be a really fun event. I'm going to enjoy the fuck out of it. I'm going to be recapping this on Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We'll see how these bets went. Most likely they all went into the toilet, but we'll find out. Until then, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.